You can hear me okay? I'm just, I'm just
Like
joking.
I'm like what? Like,
I'm totally joking.
yeah.
I'm
I'm like
totally,
no, I can't hear you. What? What'd
yeah,
you say?
I'm totally joking. One of the things that I have to make mention, because obviously I've had CJ on the
Yeah.
show and I've known your family forever.
Yeah.
I don't know if I shared this with you, but your brothers, Bill and John, played a really intricate part in my early childhood. And I'll make this full circle to what I really want to get across. But I played baseball in New London. I played Little League on the American League side, but then I met them, I want to say, when I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old, and I used to go across town and I played for them over in their, their Little Leagues. But as I got older, I played, Junior Legion, American Legion, and they just always seemed to make sure that I was taken care of.
I love that.
But it was just kind of, when I think of how people are shaped, you look around and you try to find what feels normal and comfortable for you. And when I look back to my childhood, that was comfort to me. But that's kind of the Satti way,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You guys look at people as family.
Right.
You are always very genuine, very outgoing. I don't think that there's a Satti I know that is.
I think we're very inclusive. We really want to make sure people feel warm, welcome, and
Yes.
helped, and like to make a difference.
Yes.
And on my wall is hanging one of my things, which I've learned, and I think it's just growing up, and my experience growing up with 4 brothers quite a bit different than than the helpful, like great, that
Right.
but yeah, like to love and to be loved. So I think it's about helping people. That's like at the core of our family.
Where's that come from? When you say the core, I
Yeah.
love family dynamics.
No, so probably started way back. My grandfather, who was, I think, the youngest or about the youngest of maybe 7 children, and he, lived in above the candy store, like 2-bedroom with all the children and their parents, and they basically, didn't come from a lot of money, and he grew himself to go to college and to go to med school and became a doctor.
Wow.
And I think, and then when he met my grandmother, from what I've never met her, but who I'm named after, Dorothy H. Satti, she is somebody that just, from what I understood in every story that's been told to me through the years, is just somebody who is really warm and loving and caring. And just, again, I think the word is inclusive,
Yeah.
that, no matter what walk of life you come from, it's about helping people. And that's, I think, our bloodline, and that's what we're ingrained in, is to help people and to help them along their journey. And sometimes it could be seeing somebody that needed a ride, or somebody that, needs help with the groceries. I think we all came from and were bred with that mentality. So my grandfather, to get back to it, one of the best stories that was told to me was that he, as a doctor, there was a lot of Italian immigrants that he took care of. And, in those days, the doctors always made the calls at the houses. And I guess the thing was, he would leave money under a pillow or candy for the kids.
Wow.
But then they'd say, oh, come on, what can we do for you? Since we can't pay you, what can we do for you? And he's like, just make sure you vote for me. Get out and vote. And so, that's, I think that was just his way of saying, and that's why he became such a political chairman of the Democratic Committee when politics were politics. And then also he was Secretary of State for 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
So if one of my brothers was sitting here, they would know the exact details. I'm more like on the outskirts.
Sure.
But yeah, our family was always taught, one of my father's sayings was, I met a man that I cried because I had no shoes, and then I met a man that had no feet. And so it's like, there's always somebody that's in need, and it could be, you don't know what they're going through. And I just think that we have that innate ability to kind of, again, just really understand that, people need help along the way, or just to be courteous and kind and all the things. My brothers were in Boy Scouts, things like that. Right. So throughout our childhood, our upbringing, my father's upbringing, my mother's upbringing, she came from a Irish family, and they're all like loving, and, the Irish hugs and loving and all that. And where my father's side was more like, they punched you in the arm, that was love. So, joking. So it was more like, I just think just the way that we've been raised and the way they were raised before us and the parents they came from, it's a bloodline and it's a watered down version, but I think it's intact and it's intact. And I see that the really cool part is seeing it with all my nieces and nephews. And
I was just about to say that.
and all my nieces and nephews, I think that I'm their age, and I think that they're my constituents, that they're my they're my energy, and I just, love to see them now that they went from being little kids to growing through the years, and now they're having their own families. It's just, family is number one. La Familia.
I love that.
It's number one, and with that, we really are instilled with the fact that, one for all for one, and I just think that that's where the bloodline comes from.
And
so great question.
And it shows. I mean, I've known CJ, I've known Tori, I've just met Max, but I've known Max because of, the younger sibling of the two. But it shows in everything that they do, and it's heartwarming to see. But anyway, so before we go through you and your journey in the mortgage industry, which I've been waiting for this show for a very long time.
Right. So you've been very patient.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Absolutely.
When I think about some core people in the industry, not just in the industry, for what I do with the podcast, I try not to look at the individual from an industry perspective. I try to look at the individual from a person perspective. I know you know me, but I want to dive deep a little bit, right? So I had some like this or that questions, kind of, play a little softball before we start.
Sure.
And then we'll go into some questions that I have about your journey, the business and all that stuff, okay?
Right.
Are you a coffee or tea gal?
I'm a decaf coffee. We don't want me on caffeine, baby.
No?
We do not want me on any added caffeine. We might want to put a little Bailey's in some of the decaf, but definitely coffee.
All right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Oh my God, such a night owl, and really? I need my beauty sleep in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got with one baby on the way and
what?
And
That's
two,
right. Congratulations.
Yeah, 6
That's
weeks.
So cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's coming up here quick.
Yeah.
Sleep is very precious right now, more than before, but we're about to get back to it. And then I think I know the answer to this question, but are you a beach girl or a mountain retreat girl?
Okay, that's like an easy one. Beach.
Yeah.
Yes.
We, wife and family and I, we now are members at Guthrie, so
we get to see each other.
Get to see you all the time. So you've been in the industry for 38 years. You've built a legacy. I think I recently heard on your interview with I can't remember
the
her
mortgage
name.
Women's Mortgage Magazine.
Women's Mortgage Magazine. 4 years in a row, top lender in Connecticut for your product that you guys sell.
Actually, we're a mortgage broker, and with a company that we work with, which is number one national company, is United Wholesale, and we are, for the last 4 years, a number one broker, because they only deal with wholesale, so that's a broker in the state of Connecticut.
Awesome.
And out of 400 loan officers, so there's a lot of activity in Connecticut, and we came number one office. Yep, so that was very proud of our team. We have the best team ever.
When I think about leaders and when I think about a team, right, there's a saying that there's good people in the organization, but they can't be good unless they have a good leader. And with you having run your operation now for 28 years and having this success that you have, what do you think that sets you apart from other organizations? And not just, we can look at it obviously from the competition standpoint, but I just think in the field that I'm in, turnover happens a lot. There's things that people can't weather, whether it's economically, things like that. But you are able to weather the storm. What do you teach? What do you like? How are you able to sustain this level of success?
Right. So, first of all, we have a lot of these cliches, but there's no I in team. And I've been a manager for all of my career, basically, except for 4 years. So with a leadership role, I've absolutely matured through it. I used to be a totally different person pre-COVID, and I was like 9 to 5, where's everybody? Everybody was in the office. So it was a totally different mentality. It was old school. And I'm a very spiritual person and a very, I think relationship-based person. So I really feel that a lot of the relationship with the coworkers. I don't look at it as me as a leader.
Sure.
I look at it as we learn from every experience in life. And this is just my trajectory to learn through my experience with what I'm doing as in mortgages, right? So with that, the team is what makes me better. And I believe me adding to the team is what makes them better. So it's about weathering the storm. That's exactly perfect, because that's what it is. Every year is different. And to do, when there's things that are posted all the time on social media, like this was such a horrible year for real estate, 2024. And it's like we just increased our business by 25 to 30%. So it's just about, again, sticking to what we just said before about helping people. We're all very like-minded in our office. We're all very driven. integrity, trust, all the things that matter. So we build upon that with each other, and we're also very team-oriented. We all help each other. So I think it's about always navigating, right? Like I'm not somebody who sails, but navigating the winds and just, precipitating or not, looking forward to seeing what the market's going to bring, and not sitting there and just being like, being proactive, but also being able to handle some difficult things along the way.
And to that point, you've seen a lot of things in your career. So 28 years in with your business. You've been in the industry for 38 years.
Even though I'm only 38 years old. But yes, that's so true. My lucky number.
Yeah, that's right. So, you've seen, obviously, for me being, I'm in my mid-30s, what happened in 2008 didn't impact me because I was just getting into college and, I wasn't really working and things like that. But then you have COVID that happens, in 2020. When you think about these things that happen and cause this kind of volatile trajectory in the market, and I think with COVID, it probably was a little different because I remember selling more insurance than I ever had.
Oh my God, that was like, we'll never have those times again. Yeah. That was a, total opposite of what everybody anticipated.
Yeah. When you look at that, how do you pivot, and what do you think was like some of the hardest changes going again between 2008 and 2020? What things did you have to adjust to and were more eye-opening than others? One thing you just mentioned was, you were at 9 to 5 in the office, and then all of a sudden COVID happens and you're working remotely, but things are kind of still rolling, right?
Right.
What did you learn most about those times compared to previous times of volatility?
Right. So first of all, I was never 9 to 5 in an office. I was always like, 9 to 7, and but back then we didn't have the same technology that we have now that allows us to kind of work anywhere. So 2008, that was a very, unless you lived through it, you didn't know it. But that was a really difficult time because it happened so quickly. And there wasn't really we had just started our business, and we'd been in business about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Not in business, but in me joining the business, I should say. I joined Bill at that time. I left being just a loan officer and working for a major corporation. So I took the leap of faith in the end of 2006, and by 2008, it was like crash. It was like really a year and a half when I was really getting into it. So that was a really hard time because we had 3 offices. We, had used a lot of our resources financially to build the business because we thought it was a never-ending stream of income and that it was just going to keep going and going. And I guess the biggest thing that I learned is that life happens pretty quickly and it comes out at you unexpectedly, and it's the mindset that gets you through. And when everybody else was doing things like crashing and burning and leaving and actually getting into the insurance industry, that was the hottest thing to get into. I just, Bill and I had lots of conversations, a lot of dark moments, a lot of punch in the stomach, gut, fear. But we worked through it, and we just kept, meeting and figuring out how to make it work. Within, 2008, again, it was like we had 100 lenders at that time. And then they all disintegrated one by one, and then the banks started to take over. So it wasn't a really big market. At that time, we had an opportunity that we worked with Charter Oak, and we were their underwriting and mortgage department. So when they went from doing 6 loans, and this is literally overnight, 6 loans to 60 loans, probably in a 3-month period. Jeez. I literally was working till 3 a.m. trying to just process their loans. So we had a little buffer financially and every which way to kind of catch ourselves and still be in the marketplace. So that was a very unique thing, and that was like our opportunity, right? So that was able to keep us in the market. But there's been so many times that we've been asked to join another corporation or to dissolve Gateway and to go and, not be a broker. And I feel that it's just the best place to help the most amount of people. Yeah. And so anytime that we've almost and there's been very close times that it just got really stressful and really hard and financially almost suicidal, what are we doing? Right. And why are we doing this? Right. I think that those were the times that we just really sat back and kind of just let the universe talk to us, whatever, if you're religious or not, just really have faith. Yeah. Faith that if you show up every day and you show up and you do what you're supposed to do and you be consistent, that everything will work out and be okay, no matter what you're going through. So most of what, even coming today, I kind of wanted to think everything that you and I are discussing is really about life. It's like life 101. And it really, 30 years, you're in your mid-30s, I'm 62. And it really makes me realize how fast time does go.
Yeah.
But it's been through a lot of waves, just like as we talked about the ocean. I love the ocean. There's sometimes I go out and there's, nothing better than body surfing, great waves. I love to swim. But when those waves come in, they're crashing you. You have to be able to stand up and not let it tow you under and, annihilate you, right? So I just think during those different times is just really being consistent, believing that there's an opportunity, being strategic, and then aligning with your personal goals. And my goals was always to never give up the ship of Gateway, to be able to help as many people. And so I wasn't going to, especially without going into big detail, but the 2008, there was just so many really bad products out there that really put people's their biggest investment, their home, in completely, people that didn't even know what they were doing, were doing loans for people. We didn't have to be licensed back then. There was not a lot of regulation. So during that time, I just kind of was forward thinking in the sense that like these products are not going to be good in the long term for people. So I wouldn't put my line of integrity would not let me put people in some of those products and programs. So bottom line is, your question was, again, just re-ask the question so I focus back in.
Yeah, like what's some of the learning lessons that you had during, obviously 2008 and obviously COVID a little bit different story because
COVID was a good thing. We didn't know it was going to be, but the biggest lessons that I've learned and the biggest growth that I've had is that everything is a mindset, and that as long as you, again, are consistent and you show up and you do what you need to do and you put one foot in front of the other, that you're going to be on a journey and it's bringing you to the best place. And even when you might take a little bit of a wrong turn, there's always a way to still get back home.
Can I just quickly, because I love mindset. To me, mindset will dictate pretty much anything.
90% of everything is mindset.
And I just think about even me with the podcast and just the consistency of knowing that I got to show up for the people that I have on the show, and I got to post it and I got to do it. It's the mindset of I'm doing something greater.
Right.
When you think about your mindset and specifically on how you keep yourself motivated and how people around you are motivated, what exactly is that mindset? Because I think, and I guess this is more of just a question to see if I can get something a little tangible for the audience, for people who are listening.
Sure.
What that mindset is for you in the sense of you tap into it every day, regardless to what scenario, because things get thrown at us in every which way direction. Again, using the COVID example, because for me, when that happened, that was like one of the most like, oh crap kind of moments. What's going to happen now? And then all of a sudden, like people are buying cars, people are buying houses, and it's like, okay. I like to think now, and I'll just use my example, when it comes to mindset of anything, I just kind of am in the moment, and how I do that is just think about what to do now and not worry about what's going to happen. Sorry, not think about what's not happening, what happened, what to do next. What's my next move? What do I have to do? How do I stay from this moment, and what's my next move to the next moment? That to me helps me stay grounded in my day-to-day, the anxiety that comes, because anxiety comes, and there's stressful things that happen, but you have a lot of success in 38 years in the mortgage industry that people today, I would hope that there's this next wave of business people can have that same kind of success, but there's a level of anxiety that people experience that I wonder what your advice would be to someone who doesn't have that mindset of growth.
Right. So I love all this because this is so my vibe. But first of all, it's like everything that I've had till this point of sitting here is if I'm not growing, right? So it's always about reaching and striving to understand. And this has always been something that's evolved. It's an evolving of myself and where I'm going. And, again, until I take my last breath, I want to be living life to the fullest and learning something and growing and making, being purposeful. So the mindset is everything. I think it's 90% everything. And like I said, in 2008, my mindset was scared so much and lived in so much fear that it froze me. And then there was months where I'd sit down by Guthrie Beach, and my husband and I would look out at the water. Bill Kinsella, my husband, who's my partner in life and partner in the business, and I'd sit down there and just look out at the water and, pray and think and dream or really not dream at that point, just try to be like, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And when I lived in the fear and I let the fear engulf my emotions in my mind, then I was frozen. I couldn't get out of my own way. And that was a very dark days. A lot of things were happening that time. My mother was sick. We had a house that we just got it. The bill walked away with all of our money. It was the darkest days in 2008, 2009. But the good that came out of it is that you realize how resilient you are and how much mindset absolutely serves a purpose. But the whole thing is like, how does everybody get a positive mindset? You can't just go, oh, I'm positive, I'm happy. I mean, like, there's things that I do to practice it. So I know what it feels like to be full of fear and anxiety. And that's not a great place, and I definitely don't like to go there. So I'm really through different practices. I have a therapist, I have a business coach, I have an acupuncturist. Like, I dedicate my free time to working on myself, because myself is what I bring to my job and to my clients and to all of my business partners. So for me to put on my oxygen and be my best, I have to really go internal. It's really internal work. What you see the outside of doing a mortgage, that's just my end product. But it's the work that I do internally to stay strong, to stay steady. During the times when there's waves, at one point in time we had 30 people working for us, and now we have about 14. And at one point we had 3 of us working, and I said I never want to go to more than 5 people. And things just happen, I think, organically. And again, little like the universe speaks to us, and there's opportunities in front of us. So mindset is everything, and staying open and positive. And I try to wake up every day. When I wake up, to try to really put my feet on the ground, I used to go run. I just used to go, okay, get dressed, get out the door, get to work. And I would never think. I would never take a moment. I would never take a pause. And now I'm trying to do some rituals that just ground me. Love that word. Settle me down, because I'm definitely a high vibration, like high energy, ever ready battery. Let's go. And that battery got burnt out. Yeah. It got burnt out a lot of times. And so that's not a good way. Right. And my energy, whatever my vibe is and my energy, I bring that to every person that I'm going to meet and talk to. Yeah. So whether it's my team, if I'm all hyper and freaking out about something, well, that's just going to get them to freak out. Right. If I'm not confident and able to let the clients know, like, yeah, this is a bump in the road, but we're going to be okay, or the agents, then what good am I doing? Right. So everything begins and ends with my internal, just centeredness, being centered and grounded. And I work twice as hard as I do. My profession comes very easy to me. Yeah. I love people. I love talking to people. Right. I'm a problem solver. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at spelling. Was never a student, but my skill sets are, I love people and I love to help. So no matter what I do, but mindset is everything. And what you do it's a practice. People have to invest in their mindset. I think people think it just comes naturally and like, oh, I'm just a positive person. Yeah, I'm positive on the outside. That's like the vibe that everybody gets. But I have to work really hard when things are difficult. And I've really, through investing in coaching, mortgage coaching, investing in acupuncture, investing in therapy. Like I always joke and say my brothers owe me $1 million for all the therapy I had to go through, because it's them that caused it, So Billy, John, Michael, Robbie, the bills are still out there. But seriously, on a serious note, like I've done a lot of internal work.
When did you start working on yourself?
I think I've always been definitely aware of that you have to work on yourself, and always having a lot of self-talk. So I probably went in really, and I've always done a lot of like Tony Robbins, building but that was more, again, related to my business. Probably when I was about 32, maybe 30 is when I started serious therapy. Yeah. And I think in 2 or 3 years, I worked once a week for an hour. Wow. And I never missed an appointment except in a storm, and I'd have to drive an hour to and from, because I was living up in Farmington back then. So again, that's a lot of diligence. That's a lot of, and then I'd leave my therapy, and it wasn't like, okay, it's done, it's over. I would take what was, what the conversation was, and I would take it with me and try to apply it. And but from my 30s, which this is crazy, from 30, now that I'm like looking at 32, roughly, 30 years later, I'm still like a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I continuously will be. Again, COVID ended up being a really good thing, but you know, Mike Balestrini works with me. He's a great guy. Top LO, loan officer, like totally kills it. But I had just been in Block Island for the weekend. I literally was walking in the door, and this is when everybody was working in the office. There was no remote. There was
Right.
none of that. I was walking in the office, and Mike, almost like it was like a fury, like is grabbing everything that he has, like on his desk almost, is grabbing it like a hurricane was coming or a tsunami. And it actually was for a while, but like grabbing it is like, this isn't good, this isn't good. And I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to any of that noise,
I love
good, bad,
that
or indifferent.
so
I just never watch the news, and that's just not who I am. So like Mike, is definitely more attuned to all that. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, I was like so blind at that moment. I had zero idea that we were about to have one of the biggest things in our world happen to us universally, as not just a country, but as, the world, right?
What a story. That's crazy.
So he like goes running out, and I'm like, what is he even talking about? And then that was in March, and pretty quickly things turned, and we, Bill again is a huge implementer. So he got everybody set up so they could work remote. And then we worked remote, and, and then it was like, okay, for a while, that was when I had to go into some leadership mode, because Mike and Tori were pretty new as loan officers. I think they were really new as loan officers, maybe both 2 years in, and they didn't have the skill set, nor did I really.
Yeah.
I was in 2008, but this was different. And so I was like, I don't know where this is going to bring us, but I'm not going to go down with the ship. I'm going to fight it. And I just had to reinforce and show them. I think at that time, the way that I coached and led them was by just showing them, like, just get on the phone. People are going to need us more than ever. There's going to be so many different conversations. And again, a person's home is their security. It's their rock. And if they're going to start losing their homes, we better be there to help them navigate, because that's what I already experienced in 2008.
Right.
So many people that were just being given really bad information and products and programs that they lost their homes, right?
Wow.
So this ended up being a great blessing where everybody, things change, shifts happen. We all know the story with COVID. But what happened also was then we started to work remote. And that allowed so much more opportunity and growth for myself. Because then I learned that I don't have to sit at a desk from 9 to 7, that I can actually do my job and be able to do things that were going to take care of myself. So then I made sure not only did I have my therapy,
Sure.
but that I would do other things to enrich my life and to grow me and to help my team.
I think that's a huge thing. I'll use me as an example, but I think that there's probably a lot of people that fall into the category of high angst in certain situations, very much like COVID. But a lot of that, you said you don't watch the news, so you didn't even know what was going on.
I was on an island that in the winter, there's nothing going on. There's no TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been saying it a lot on my show, noise. There's a lot of noise with everything, whether it be the COVID stuff, politics, whatever. There's a lot of noise. And I think that everything that you described of what you've gone through from when you were 32 to now, in the sense of what you've been constantly trying to work on and evolve and develop, a big piece of being able to do that is staying away from the noise.
Right.
Because when you're involved in who's going to be elected and what person's doing and that person's doing, you're taking away from a part of you that's trying to grow. When you're watering other parts, let's just use the politics of it. If I'm sitting there and consuming political information to determine and get people to think how I think or believe how I believe, and then they don't believe and we're fighting back and forth, I just spent all this time doing something that doesn't matter.
Right.
And for you, what I love is that you just cut it out completely, because at the end of the day, what does it matter? The only thing you have the only thing you have to be responsible for is yourself. So I love that about you, that you really stepped into a part of your life that said, you know what, the only way I can grow is if I do the therapy, the acupuncture, the business coach, all of this stuff, because at the end of the day, we are a constant work in progress. There's
Right.
never, success isn't in, and we're going to go into this perfect segue
Sure.
into
Yeah.
success, but I don't think that success, yes, while it's an incline, success isn't supposed to be a straight incline. It's
No way.
supposed to be this. I think that we as people are defined by how we react to it, and where we are in life doesn't determine, like, if I see somebody with a $2 million house and yeah, they look successful, but to you, comes from within. And I absolutely love that.
Right.
I
And
really do.
Paul, something that you just said that's really powerful is it's, within, right, what we feel. And like, again, how long did it take you for me to finally sit down and do this? And thank God I beat the
Yeah.
6 week, when the baby's due, right? Boy or girl?
Baby girl.
Oh,
Number 2.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Oh
thank
my
you.
gosh,
Thank you.
congratulations.
We'll be at the beach all the time.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I'll be there helping with that little baby. But yeah, so like, again, what I realize is there's along the way is you go to it, whatever it is, if you go right to it, and that means go to the fear, go to the anxiety. If you go right to it, then you empower yourself to get through it.
Yeah.
But if we do all these things, distractions, and we all do distractions, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be exercise, it could be eating, drinking, whatever. But we
Right.
do all these things to distract us from feeling anxious, right? That's the number one thing. But if you go to the anxiousness and you go to the fear and you kind of say, what is this showing me? What is this telling me? Then you are able to overcome it. So, like, again, when we probably talked a year ago at this point,
Right. Yeah,
probably,
about a year, yeah.
and a year ago, and that's like just to show you my growth in a year. A year ago, I would have been anxious to do this. My mindset, right? My mindset would be anxious. It would create these things like, oh, I'm not a good speaker, oh, I'm not good on camera, whatever it may be. But I walked in here today like, let's do this, let's go. Like, I was so excited.
Right.
Totally different mindset, and that's because I took my fear of this circumstance. Everybody has lots of circumstances that we are fearful of, but when you go to it and you just grow past it and go right to it, like go right to the eye of the fear,
Yeah.
you diffuse it.
And most things are like things that are new, you're either going to be anxious or fearful of in general because you're not comfortable doing it.
Right.
So I think that in just even when I first started in the insurance industry, like I was very nervous about what I was doing. I remember like the first policy I ever wrote, I looked over to my girlfriend, wife now, my girlfriend, I said, Claire, like, they just gave me their bank information. I would get anxious.
Yeah.
And something very simple, which is my job to help people with insurance and take their money, their socials and all that stuff
Right.
and help protect their homes. I was very anxious, and that's a feeling that stuck around for a long time because I wasn't used to it. People would normally, where I worked before, people would just come in and buy things. They
Right.
would swipe their cards or things like that. So it's supposed to be uncomfortable. I think that's what I've been
Right.
able to dissect over
Growth
the last.
is uncomfortable.
Yes.
And when you go to that space, you have growth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you go to it, but there's a lot of people that stifle themselves because they'll do anything not to have to go to it.
Right, because we're wired to be comfortable.
Right.
And I genuinely believe that anything worth having requires hard work. The therapy that you've done, everything you've done over 30 years, there's probably days that you're like, I didn't want to do this because I'd rather do something else, but
Right.
it's hard work. You have to commit to the hard work of taking yourself to a place where you either want to grow, get better, make more money, anything that's worth having requires that hard work, which is always just going to feel uncomfortable. You mentioned, the anxiety piece. One thing that's been good for me is like even yesterday, as I'm preparing for your show, typing the notes and doing all this
Yeah.
stuff, I'm like, man, I'm starting to get anxious. And then I have to rewind because sometimes I don't know where it's coming from. I have to take a step back and I have to say, okay, why am I feeling anxious?
Perfect.
And then I'll go through a couple things. All right, did I get the kids' dinner ready? Yes, I got the kids' dinner ready. Did I feed the dog? Yes, I fed the dog. Did I put the laundry away? Okay, where's the one thing that I didn't do? I didn't finish the outline for my podcast with Dorothy. And then it comes down because it's like, all right, I addressed why I'm feeling that way. And this is something that I've been working on just within myself over the last couple of years. So it's interesting to just hear you say, you just kind of got to attack the fear right away because that kind of goes line in line.
But I think what you just said is absolutely the other part of it is what's the message that's here? What am I supposed to learn here? Like everything that comes at you that's hard, it's to teach you something
Right.
and to make you stop and look. And there's so many times in my life that, especially when I was like COVID did a good thing for me for my growth. It really propelled my ability to just get past certain things. But I just think that again, the ability to, take a moment, pause and be like, what's the message here? What is it teaching me? And when people take a minute to be mindful, so like the mindful minute, I mean, we could go on for so many different, different angles of this podcast, but, there's, to me, my job, my employment or my career is just a vehicle for me to keep growing and to keep getting to a higher level of being like the better version of Dorothy. And again, I've said this before, but so that I can help people, because I really do love people. Like I love just talking and hanging out, and it's my total happiness.
And your passion for people and what you do for work stands out, right? It's something that when you walk into the room, the energy is captivating. I've been in several rooms with you, obviously outside of this, and on one-to-ones where we've, had dinner or whatever. But it's captivating. People know you're there, not because you're flamboyant and boisterous and all that stuff. It's because your energy that comes out is very genuine and authentic.
I'm going to stop you for 1 sec, because
Sure.
thank you so much for that. But I can tell you right now, if you ask some of the agents that worked with me probably before we met, I was anxious, and my anxiousness would show through by being boisterous and being loud. And like, again, it's something I learned as a child, the youngest of, 5.
Do you think you've accepted that though? And now, and while it's no longer anxious, it's just the acceptance of that's who the energy of Dorothy is?
I think that I've learned that I don't have to be the loudest person in the room, that I don't have to be the funniest, I don't have to be anything but myself, and I've become more of my genuine self-centered self, if that makes any sense, that I've really learned that I'm happiest with less noise. I don't have to be everything to everybody. And that was something that was in my mind, that I have to be enough, I have to be more, I have to stand out. And now the pressure of all the things that I've done in the last couple of years, that I've just had growth through, is now like I love that I'm just calm and happy. And I think we were at a function and we were at the back corner of the room, and normally I'd be like, oh my God, why am I not sitting in the center, center of attention? That was how I grew up. That was my vibe with my brothers. That's how I'd get attention. But now it's like, now I just love to sit back. And I used to be the one that always wanted to go to go to so many different parties and go out. And now like I love being in smaller gatherings. I love, like, I'm changing, I'm shifting, and I love the shifts. I love more the one-on-one. I'm really developing into like my highest and best self. And I'm able to bring that to people in what I do, which is helping them get their biggest investment, which is a home.
What's that feel like right now as you're going through this process? Because it sounds like that every day is a new revelation, in a sense, right? Where you're able to compound the days into feeling great, feeling good about yourself. What's that feel like for you?
It feels just a whole level of peace and calm, which that's a totally new feeling for me. And that's probably really happened, I would say, just to share something, not to make this a big deal, but I had cancer 2 years ago.
Oh my God.
And, everybody's like, everybody's got a different relationship with cancer. And it slowed me down enough to realize the priorities. I still kicked it out of the park with volume and all that, but I learned some really great lessons through that. And with that, so I'm going to say 2 years is really where I've had the most growth. And not because I was I definitely had an opportunity to just sit back, and I had to. When you're doing chemo, you have to sit back. You can't move. My long story short, but so I learned that some priorities. And I think again, it's when you get quiet enough, you can hear. And that's probably the biggest thing that's happened in the 2 years, that then the more quieter I become, the more I can hear, and the more that I'm in a calm state. And when I'm in a calm state, everybody likes it a lot better. Wow. If my team thinks that I've even had an inch of coffee, they're like, okay, did you drink coffee today? And so calm Dorothy, calm, I'm not going to ever be really calm, but a calmer version of Dorothy is, I think, a better Dorothy for everybody. And it just really lets me bring my gifts to life. It lets me bring my gifts to the world, and that's what I love.
Life moves very fast. You said that earlier in this conversation, and I'm 35 and I feel like I'm still 18 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like, man, I just graduated high school, just graduated college. I'm still playing baseball and things like that. I said this to Travis Beausoleil, who was my last episode. He was the Mitchell College baseball coach. Now he's the athletic director, right? And I said, man, I still have dreams of me playing college baseball. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, not playing it anymore because those
Yeah.
were really good times
Yeah.
in my life. But when I think about that, there's things that as an adult that I wish that I knew, and I think that's just part of learning. I don't think that when you're younger you're ever going to know what you know now, right? And in 30 years I'm going to look back and saying hindsight's 2020.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm going to look back in 30 years and be like, man, I should have done this. But that's the journey of life. You're not supposed to know everything. And if you do, then like you should be this person, that person of the world.
Then
like
life would be pretty boring if you knew everything.
Would be really boring and really perfect. And I
Right.
don't think that a perfect life makes things easier. Maybe
No.
in a sense, but I think it's supposed to be hard. With that being said, Dorothy, what is something that you would have told your younger self about life, about your journey, where you are now, where you strive to be? Because again, in 30 years, you're going to probably have a different perspective. But from your last 50 years of life, what would it something that you would tell 10, 15, 20-year-old Dorothy?
Yep. And I kind of think I resonate probably around my 30s, because before that was just like getting to where I was going
Sure.
and being crazy wild and, fancy foot free or whatever. The biggest thing I would tell my younger self is mindset. I know we're coming back to that and I don't want to,
No, that's fine.
but mindset is everything. And I actually, one of my things and one of my goals in the future is have more time to mentor and to get a couple community people around to be able to do a mentorship for kids that are in high school, right? Because I think that's probably the most anxious years of anybody's life because they're like almost into the real world. They're
Right.
inching their way in. So the younger self that I would say is just mindset and your belief system. What you believe, you receive. And if your mindset is that you're not good enough or that this is hard or that I don't know what I'm doing with my life, everything is just like temporary. You can always like change your course. I have a 23-year-old son and he's going to be an electrician and he's trying to get into the union and, get a job and all this. And, and I'm like, Dill, it doesn't matter. Like it's
Right.
going to happen. There's
Right.
no race.
Right.
And I think when we're always putting so much pressure on ourselves, so less pressure on yourself, be open to more things. I was always pretty much an open person. Maybe too much. I experimented with a lot of fun things in life, but be open to things and not live in a box. It's hard because I'm the kids that are like 23 now. That's a huge age difference for me, 40 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not living in their world. I'm part of their world, but
Sure.
growing up is a totally different thing. But just, again, they're even saying how anxious this generation is.
Yeah.
And my heart is so bleeds for that because the one thing that I lived with was a lot of anxiety. And I think it's even more so in this this generation that are the younger ones coming up around their 20s.
So connected to everything.
Yeah. And it's like, unfortunately, technology makes everybody, even though it seems like we're all together on this big social platform, it's really you're sitting in your room or you're sitting in this one little bubble and it's your little pod, right? And so another thing that happened during COVID that I loved, even though they really weren't supposed to, Dylan and his buddies and some friends all got together and it was this like old school, the old school, like the neighborhood kids would come over and everybody would be sitting there and having fun and giggling and nobody was like on their phone 100% because they were kind of over it with school because they weren't really all interconnected. And they, again, they weren't really socializing because school was over. They weren't allowed to go into school. So we'd have just a small group that was safe and that got together on a regular basis. And we don't have like the barbecues anymore. Everything is like a big party and people feel like they're obligated to go. But it's like the little neighborhood parties, the little like moments that you take to do the simple things. That's something like the younger self. Yeah.
That matters.
So kind of, I went on a little tangent there,
okay.
but I would just tell my younger self to just be, to just definitely like, but you won't know until you know, to really do the hard. My acupuncturist has this great saying is that if you do hard in life now, your life will become easy. But everybody that looks for everything to be easy, their life will always be hard. And that's really powerful.
You know what I love about this question? It's like, because yes, and I just actually thought about this, but yes, we can't tell our younger self this. But there's a younger version of Paul. There's a younger version of you. There's a younger version of that whoever listens to this is something that I would hope would resonate. And this is actually interesting because it kind of goes into what you said you wanted to kind of embark on and that mentorship. And I love the idea of being able to bring it to the youth, the high schoolers, even in college, I don't know what's happening in college these
Right.
days. But after college, I didn't feel like I was prepared for the world. And I don't know where that preparation comes from. I do think fundamental things like understanding economics and business or trades are
Right.
part of that. But with mentorship, and I have a couple more questions. We'll wrap up. I got like 10 minutes or so.
Sure.
With mentorship, with what you have going on, what's your like dream scenario for mentorship for you,
Right.
and what you want to bring to obviously
Yeah.
what we just mentioned, and maybe your team,
Yeah, and I love that. And it's not my team really. It's
your family.
It's really like younger kids. Like
Yeah,
I just resonate with them, and I have a connection. And I really believe that, right, when they kind of get into the high school years, that's when their biggest shift happens. And I think that that's where I'd love to do the mentorship, and just really do things that will help them, prepare to kind of enter the world and get some ideas about things. And as they get old, maybe freshman year would be something, and then
Sure.
senior year would be a totally different thing, or even colleges, local colleges. But some of the things is just really about, I guess I'm going to go backwards, I always was a PTO mom, like totally crazy
Yeah.
PTO, had to be a room parent. And I would try to do things that were outside the box. And that would be like have a yoga teacher come in
Mm-hmm.
and teach second graders to do yoga, and
I
to
love
like
that.
right. use that as like a de-stressor.
Right.
Do things that we as adults need to calm us down. Well, why aren't our kids doing this? Right? Why aren't our kids going to yoga classes? Why is it just for adults?
Yeah.
So, it's one thing to be in a sport and all that, but just things that are going to pretty much give them an opportunity to, like, mind, body, soul, to just reinforce and have some conversations about inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
to just bring up topics that are real in their world and try to get to their world and try to understand the world that they're in, because I could be doing this in, 3 years in a different generation again.
Right.
So really just trying to help them navigate the world, but more on a emotional, like I just want to go to the anxiety part.
Mm-hmm.
I want to find a way to de-stress these poor kids.
Yeah.
And they're not the poor kids, they've got so much sunshine and brightness,
yeah.
but how do you help them shine?
And
And not let the anxiousness and the anxiety like dim their light.
and they're anxious at like very young age,
Right.
not just like you said, just second graders. There's a thing that CJ said, and I believe it was his grandmother, which would have been your mother, right?
Okay.
I believe.
Grammy, he said, yes.
He said that there's something he learned from her, and it was a saying called "Tutto passa."
This shall pass.
This shall pass.
Oh my God, like hand over heart.
And
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I feel like everything that you've described over the last 45 plus minutes that we've been
Yeah.
sitting here, and even, people can hear a story and get really anxious about that story, even though they're over it. I just think about even COVID, just even bringing that up, I got like, riled up. But you guys live that life of this too shall pass. I kind of love that, because at the end of the day, we're going to go to bed, and with grace and gratitude, we'll be able to wake up the next morning.
Right.
And everything from the day before is gone. You can't look back.
Right.
And that's such a strong message that I think that was passed down through your generation.
Right.
In your family.
And my mother said that all the time. Like the one thing she'd say is, you get yourself in a tizzy, and like this too shall pass. And I think that it means that, like, no matter what, and she had a lot of things that she had to get through in her life,
Mhm.
right? We all have things, and they're all relative to us and to our story, right? But this too shall pass means that, like, just hang in there.
Yeah.
Be proactive, bring your best self, and you'll get through it. No matter what, you'll totally get through it,
Mhm.
and things will get better. And even if you just hold on, and sometimes it's holding on, to the raft until, the waves stop crashing, right?
Right.
It's just to hold on, get through it, and then you're going to see the sunshine again.
Love it. Before we let you go here, what is one bucket list item that you hope to achieve in the next
Oh,
few
I don't like
years?
that saying bucket list. I won't tell you what I call it, but I don't like the bucket
Okay.
list idea. I don't know why, because it just sounds like it's like finite. Like when I think of a bucket, it's like you got to put it in there, and it's like another stress to like get it done. But go ahead and ask the question. I kind of cut you off.
No, it's okay, because when I think of a bucket, I think of a bunch of things that you want to do, and you're just pulling it out of the bucket and you're bringing it into life, and you bring it into earth. If I wanted to do 100 different things, I'd pop it into this bucket. 100 different things that I normally wouldn't do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's skydiving, whether it's climb Mount Everest, whatever the case might be. Now I'm going to pull it out of the bucket, not put it in the bucket. So so it's kind of the opposite. So with that, is there things there's anything that you have that you want to continue to do over the next, several years of your working years, and what's that look like for you? Just
keep on evolving, becoming my best. And the better I become, the more that I can make a difference in people's lives. That's my why. That's always been my why. And I've been able to develop that along the way. And that's just like absolutely what I want to do. And I just want to say one thing to you, Paul, like what you're doing with these podcasts and the way that, and you said it's just less than a year, it'll be March, will be a year. Yeah. The time, now that I see the setup that you're doing and the time that it takes and the dedication, this isn't just like to say, hey, I'm Paul. This is like really good stuff.
This is fun.
And this is more than fun, though, to the listeners and the people that you're making a difference. There's going to be somebody that listens to 1, 2, all the podcasts, whatever, that are going to learn something and get something. You're adding value, and it's taking a lot of energy to add that value. So, like, I want to really say thank you to you.
I appreciate that.
And so let me ask you something.
Sure, yeah.
What is your why?
Ooh, wow, what is my why? Man, I've been able to look at this podcast from a perspective of a lens of leadership. And funny that you say that I take the time and the energy. There's a lot of things that I do in life that I do have to commit to a lot of energy, whether it's sales in my business and networking, and like you said, you show up to a room and you got to kind of put a show, you got to work the room, but what this podcast has allowed me to do, and I think that it's my why, is to step into a form of leadership. And I don't know what that leadership role is going to be at whatever point. It could be in my role at work, it could be obviously in the community, through the networks that we're in, but I just know that there is a calling of leadership. So, and with that, why I want to go ahead and lead my family. I want them to see me specifically as someone who didn't have a dad, but I want them to see their dad as someone who led people and motivated people and brought value. So that's my why. And I thank you for asking. No one's ever asked me that.
No, that's beautiful. I love it, because you're giving to us, and I just want to hear your story and your why. Yeah. And that's just incredible. And like, again, just by doing this podcast, it's going to lead you to something bigger that's going to be answering and being able to fill in your why. So totally cool.
I appreciate it. So before we got like a minute left.
Okay.
Where can people find you? Where is, social media, where your business is?
Everybody knows Crown Pizza in Waterford. So I'm right next to Crown Pizza. It's Gateway Mortgage Services. And my cell phone is 860-833-1083. And even if it's just helping somebody try to navigate through some questions, I'm available. Even if they're with another bank, I don't care. I'm just here to help. So any questions, anything I can help with, always call me.
Awesome. Dorothy, Satti, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. This was
awesome.
Great.
I loved it.
Totally cool.
And I can't wait to put it out. And yeah, great. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.